So I personally had a problem with backlogs in Agile. Backlogs usually is a very long list, and what I needed a bird's eye view of what are we doing, how far are we, how are we tracking, and that's what I want to teach you today. It's not something I invented. A story map is where it started, but I have adapted a little bit. So what I like to run is a little bit of a story map workshop. And the story map workshop is meant to give you this bird's eye view. It's meant to answer questions like, why are we doing this? What exactly is it on a high level? And how do we prioritize it? And how do we see what is our minimum viable product? So where I usually start is what I call the bird's eye view what. And I like doing it in a normal Agile user story fashion. So for example, if you want to create an internet banking system for your users, the high level what would be, as Bank X, I want to create a internet banking platform so that my customers can transact with me 24/7. You can obviously do that in your user's view as well, like as a user I need X, Y, or Z, and I sometimes like to go into a little bit of levels there. So I use a little bit of the 5 whys technique, and just to dive in and say, why are we really doing this? For example, why do you want to build an internet banking site? And they give you the reason. And why? Just go deeper and deeper, and it's usually very interesting to see where you get at when you do that. So that covers a little bit of the what, but it also covers the why, and it's a great piece to start, so that everyone just knows in this workshop we're going to be focusing on this grand what. This is what we're building, and it also has a bit of the who in there, and it has the why in there in normal Agile story fashion. Why are we actually doing it? You've driven a bit deeper into that, so you know exactly why and what's behind the why and everything. So that's a good backdrop to start this workshop. At this time you could do personas, but sometimes I feel we get a little bit stuck in there, but you can go into the who. Who, maybe just focus on a high level bird's eye view. Who are the groups of people that we are building this for? And personas you can maybe leave for a later stage. So now let's get into the story map. So what I like to put at the top is the user journey. And that comes really from design thinking, because it is what is the user journey. And if you're following proper design thinking, you've probably been through a process of a little bit of a user research, and this user journey is not something that you made up, but it's something that comes from actual interviews and research of users, and it's the users who are defining this little thing here. But the user journey is what I like to put at the top. And the user journey would be something like, how do you see users using the system? But it's not only using the system, it's also where does it start for them? Because maybe the start isn't digital. Where were they when they first engaged? So it could be something like, how did they find out about your company? What was the marketing message and how did they come in? And then maybe how were they hooked? What was the product that hooked them? And what kind of channels are we using to hook them to come and convert them onto this project? And then it would be maybe the start of the digital journey. So how do they get onto the platform? How do they register? How do they log in? And after that, the features that your system has. For example, if you're talking about internet banking, it would be, I would want to see the transactions, and then I want to maybe make a payment or maybe do a transfer, and then maybe I would like to authorize. So you just go through the whole user journey and you put that at the top of the story map, and that's going to be the main themes of your system. And it's a very nice grouping to use. And then it's time to dive into the verticals and to say, all right, so if we start way back at the front again, the start of the user journey, for example, the marketing message. What are the kinds of marketing messages that we are currently using? What are the kind of marketing messages that we want to be using? And this is the time where you let yourself free and you just dream. This is not a session to figure out what we can do or what we're capable of doing, or what technology can do or can't do. It's really just, what can we dream of? And for each of those themes that we have at the top, we will go down and we will say, for example, under login, what are all the things that we need to consider for login? It could be simple things like we need to type in a username and password. We need to be able to reset our password. What do we do if we forget it? For example, how would users register? Would they be able to register digitally? Is it manual? You just think of all the things that fall under that one. If you think about something like payments, the payment theme or the payment step in the user journey, it could be just a single payment, or maybe you want to enable multiple payments. What about scheduled payments and so forth? So you see how you use these themes as a framework to now deep dive every step. And it's usually nice to mark, what are the things or the process or how does it work currently? That could be at the top. And the next version could be, okay, if we had to reinvent this and it's now properly digital, or the next version of digital, what would it look like then? And you can have another lane at the bottom and you could say, but if we had to dream of the future, what would it look like then? So we're trying to imagine this user journey, how are we going to evolve it for the next iteration and iteration after that. And that gives you a very good bird's eye view of the system that we're building. And then what you can start doing is you can start prioritizing. So now you can say, all right, if I look at this user journey and I want to release to my customers as early as possible, what are the minimum things that I need? And that's usually your MVP. So it's a release to customers. It's not to all customers. I think these horizontal lanes that you're creating now, you call swim lanes mostly. And what you're trying to say is, if I had to release only to 10 maybe friendly customers, that's maybe the first cohort of customers. What are the things that I want in there so that I can test with those first cohort of customers before I start building on the next swim lane? So you want to imagine cohorts. And I think even before cohorts, you can add a little bit of what we call a walking skeleton. So that could be, I want to build something that's almost just demoable to users. I just want to show them. It doesn't have to work perfectly. For example, something like login isn't a high value item, and the value is what should drive your priority here, right? Logging isn't high valuable. It's just you have to have it to have a system in the end. But the highest value for the user is to see their transactions, to make payments. So maybe the first demo version, the first sprint or two, is actually focused on just building this transaction view, and it's something that you can demo, and that's the idea of the walking skeleton. So the idea is we want to prioritize based on how can we get exposure to users, or how can we get feedback to users as soon as possible without having to spend time on things that we know we can build. For example, login. It's not something new. We know how to do that, and we don't want to waste time building that up front, because we want to get to the valuable items that we can test with users. So those are a few ways you can prioritize. Practically, you could look at a vertical lane and you can just say, okay, which of these items have the most value, and you can put that on top, which has the least value, and so forth, and you can try and prioritize like that. And then you will start having these lanes, and now you have a story map that's much more dimensions than your backlog. You have the theme. It's driven by the user journey. Anyone can understand it. It also has the prioritization in there. It has a bit of a dream. So where are we going, eventually? Where are we at the moment? So you can also map yourself and you can say, where are we? Have we maybe digitized payments a lot, but we haven't done a lot for authorizations or something like that. So I really like to have a bird's eye view of my backlog like this, and I hope it's helpful for you. Thanks.